Hi, I'm Anthony from Sydney Backyard Veggies. We're in the middle of August at the moment, so in my push to get ready for spring planting, I'm trying to move along up some of my older winter crops, and one of those is my Brussels sprouts. I've got a plant here that's almost ready for harvesting, and what I'm going to do this week is actually top off a lot of these plants just to really encourage those Brussels sprouts to actually form up so I can harvest them on the weekend. So I'm going to come over here and start topping a lot of my plants that I've got. I've got this last plant here from my first patch here, and I've got another 11 over on my southern side of my garden, which I really need to encourage to produce for harvest. So what I'm looking at doing is just coming through. You can just see that I've got a lot of very big Brussels sprouts at the bottom, but as I get into the top, I'm starting to get a lot of smaller buds. So what I'm going to do is I'm probably going to cut it just at this spot here, just to force the plant to grow out the other ones more evenly and stop it concentrating on trying to grow more height and more buds. So I'm going to come through with my scissors and just top the plant off. Just using my scissors, I'm just going to top it probably just above the last big bud. There you go. So that is done. As you can see, there's a lot of bigger ones there close by, but that should be fine. I'm going to be harvesting this plant, say, on the weekend, but hopefully I'll give it enough time for the rest of the buds to really form up. I'm going to go feed these to the chooks, and I'll see what I'm going to do with the rest of them. So there you have it, done for now. I only did 4 or 5 in this batch. The rest are still quite small, so I didn't want to go top them yet. But these ones here that I've topped, they're almost ready to go, especially with the lower ones starting to spread. So I'm hoping by this weekend, so in about 5 days time, there would be a little more growth on the smaller buds that I could just harvest a lot. So now I'm just going to go do some other stuff around the patch just to prepare it for my spring planting this weekend. So I'm just out in the garden this afternoon. I am looking at preparing this part of the bed for tomatoes. I used to have my old cauliflower patch in this location, and that's just been harvested all yesterday, and that's done. But I've got my sugar snap peas here in the left, and looking at them, I think they're spent. So I was going to keep them for another week, but I feel now is probably the best time to come in, clear this bed, harvest what I can off the crop. Then what I'm going to do is probably look at digging this patch over and getting it ready for my first season tomatoes to be planted in next week. I might just go now and just harvest what I can off this last crop of peas. So I just finished going through the whole row, and I was lucky enough to get one final decent harvest out of it. Probably 3/4 of a kilo here, so really happy with that. So I'm going to come through now and start ripping out the plants and making it clear. So all this leaf matter will go to the chickens now. The chickens will go absolutely nuts over it, so nothing gets wasted. Just going to get cracking into that now. But you know, beautiful sized, beautiful sized peas. I just finished clearing that up, so that looks great now. That's going to be perfect for my tomatoes. What I'm looking at doing is probably planting 2 rows. One row to the right here, right up hard up against the pathway, and then the second row about 80 centimeters to the left. What I'm going to have to do during the week, I'm probably going to run out of time today, but during the week I'm going to come through and turn this all over, clean up all the roots and all the weeds, and then put a couple of barrel loads of my homemade compost down, just to prepare the soil for the planting next week. Look, it's going to be a good season. I'm really happy that I've moved those plants off in time for the next planting, but yeah, it's going to be good. The soil looks perfect at the moment, so, and hopefully if the weather starts warm, it continues to warm up, those tomatoes will have a great start when they get in the ground. What I'm going to try to do is try to find a few other things to do in the backyard at the moment. I've got a few other chores I need to get to, so I'll move on to the next one. So it's late afternoon now. I'm going to try to see if I can take advantage of the last few hours of sunlight to do one final planting in my patch. We're in the middle of August, so it's sort of in between waiting for your winter veggies to finish and your spring veggies to be planted out. So the spot here that I'm at the moment is where my spring capsicums are going to be planted. But at this stage, my seedlings are still quite small. So what I'm going to do is I am going to go and plant a round of Pak Choi in this spot. Pak Choi takes about 4 weeks to turn around from planting, and this spot's quite sunny, so with a bit of water and a bit of fertilizer early in the planting, they will be ready to harvest in no time. And I'll be able to clear this bed and plant out my seedlings. So what I did about 2.5 weeks ago is that I started a couple of punnets of baby Pak Choi seedlings, and I'm going to go now and plant them out in this bed. But before I do that, I've dug over the soil. I'm not going to add any amendments to it. It did have a previous crop of brassicas in this spot, and it was full of manure, so I feel I'm just going to hold off before adding any more manure to this spot. What I'm going to do is dig it over, level out the bed, and then I'll plant these out. So the intent here with my planting is that I'm going to be planting these seedlings at about 5 centimeter spacings, and I'll probably end up getting something like 15 seedlings across the bed. The idea is that I remove each seedling individually, and then you progressively just plant the seedlings out, and that's essentially it. As long as it's got a bit of root ball at the bottom, it will plant out perfectly fine, and it will settle in no time. So what I'm going to do is separate some of these seedlings first, and then I'll plant them out. My seedlings that I've got right there, I just essentially just make a hole in the ground, a little divot at about 5 centimeter spacings, and in that I put the seedling in, and then depress the soil around the seedling, and that's it, it's planted. And what I'm doing progressively is going through and trying to plant out as many of the seedlings as I can, trying to keep some of that soil on there if you can, but if it doesn't work out, doesn't matter. I rarely get them dying after they've been planted. Try to give them a bit more space. If you like a bigger plant, give them a little bit more space. If you don't mind the smaller, bring them closer. So I'll try to plant between 5 and 10 centimeters, and just go through, plant them, and then later on we'll come through and water them. So it's going to continue on and plant the rest of the punnet. So there you go, that's my plot planted out. I've gone through 2 punnets of seedlings, and I've probably got close to 200 seedlings planted in this spot. I'm just going to come through now and give them a bit of a water just to get them to settle in. And then in about a week's time, I will give them a liquid feed just to really get them to grow fast. In this spot, it's quite sunny, the days are getting longer, the soil's starting to warm up, so I'm expecting them to grow and be ready for harvest in that 4-week period, just in time for my spring seedlings to be planted out. So really happy with that. Got it planted out just in time for sunset. Look, thank you very much for joining me, and I hope to see you in the next one.